Hello and welcome to Lunch with Lee. I'm your host Shane Lee. Today on the show, Paul Williams, a former Australian rules footballer playing 198 games for the Collingwood Football Club and 117 games for the Sydney Swans. He's an AFL Premiership player in 2005 with the Sydney Swans, you beauty, 2 times Bob Skilton medalist, and an AFL All-Australian. Post-career he's coached the Western Bulldogs and was inducted into the Tasmanian Hall of Fame. Welcome, Paul.
Shane, thanks for having me, mate.
Mate, I really appreciate this, mate. Since we caught up and had lunch down in Melbourne a few months ago, mate, it's good to catch up again.
Yeah, it's good to actually talk to you without a beer in my hand.
Well, I've got one here, mate. Sydney beer, beautiful. Hey, and the other guest, Danny McGinlay, who described himself as a comedian, a premiership banner writer, I love that bit, and a top bloke. He started performing comedy at the age of 16 and has worked all over Australia, London, New York, and at the Edinburgh Festival. But away from the stage, he's a mad Western Bulldog supporter. So we'll talk about that, Paul. He's also a co-host on the Afternoon Sport show with myself. And he's a mad, he has a man crush on Ange Postecoglou, I should say. Well, welcome, Danny.
Yeah.
How are you, mate?
Thank you, Shane. Yeah, good to be here. I do follow Ange Postecoglou wherever he goes. I've been a Tottenham Hotspur fan for about 2 weeks now. I've got to say I'm not really enjoying it, but I'll continue while Ange is there.
Paul, I'll start with you, mate. I want to ask you first big question, mate. Are you a pie or are you a swan?
Where's this going live? Is it in Sydney or is it everywhere, mate?
This is global, mate. This is a global podcast. But I'm a mad Swannies fan. But I know you have a premiership with the Swans, so yeah.
Yeah, no. Listen, I'm the best way I can answer this is I've got 2 daughters. One goes for the Pies, one goes for the Swans.
Well done, mate. Well done.
I've got a foot in both camps.
Nice one.
Hey, Paul, you coached the Bulldogs. Why don't you go for us? Come on, you got one of the best winning percentages of any coach at the Western Bulldogs. You coached 3 games and we won 2 of them.
I know. I hate the Bulldogs. I hate them.
That's quite common for ex-employees, I found.
But it must be good. It's often with the Swans and the Pies, mate. They sort of peak at different times. So you're obviously always in a pretty good place. The Swans last year outperformed themselves, got to the grand final. They got smashed. But the Pies this year, there must be a chance to take out the flag.
Oh, listen, they're looking pretty good, I think. I think that they would be one of 3 or 4 that would definitely going to be a huge chance to win it. Everything, you have to stay healthy. I think your Bulldogs are in trouble, Danny. Sorry, mate.
I agree. That's fine. The only thing I'll disagree is there is no way that there's 3 or 4 sides. Collingwood are locked in. It is
locked in.
Engrave the cup now. There is no way Collingwood can lose from here.
Oh, that sounds like a certainty. So don't
premiership's
sell
a
my
cakewalk,
grand final
as they
tickets.
say.
This is my defence mechanism. If every Collingwood fan I say this to, they're like, shut up. So I'm putting the moz on you. You cannot lose.
Oh, thank you. Lovely. I agree. I think that they're...
Oh, nice.
I think they're definitely probably the favourites at the minute. But Port are coming hard. And
yeah, they're good.
I think... also, clearly, Brisbane are still very much a chance, and Melbourne, who beat them on King's birthday, sounds weird saying that, doesn't it? King's birthday, they're definitely coming good at the right time as well. And
Danny, you and I do some work on Afternoon Sport in the morning. Talk a lot of sport. I know you love your AFL. You're a mad Western Bulldogs fan. This season's been a bit frustrating for yourself, surely.
Oh yeah, we're a good
5.
football side.
Yeah.
Except for the whole bit where you put the ball on your foot, we are so inaccurate. We can't. We're getting scores of like 2 goals 26. We're dominating inside 50s, but we're not hitting targets. It is very frustrating, but. Look,
if they change the rules and allow you to hand pass it through, you guys will come good, I reckon.
That'd be great.
Well said.
I'll tell you the downside of being a Dogs fan is when we won it in 2016, we came from 7th. So always in the back of your mind, you think a miracle can happen.
Maybe, yeah. Hey, Paul, I want to ask you about 2005. You started at the Pies. Well, you're a Tassie boy originally. Oh, by the way, the Tasmanian Hall of Fame. Congratulations.
Yes.
Who else
No,
is in
thank
there?
you.
Who else in there? Your brothers, your sisters, Martin Bryan? Who else is in there?
Mum and Dad.
Errol
Mum and
Flynn.
Dad are the selectors.
Errol Flynn, yeah.
Mary Donaldson of Denmark.
yeah, true.
And David Boone.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
And punter.
But you must have thought, so you're a Tassie boy, gone to Melbourne, played with the Pies, and then come to Sydney 2005, or prior to that. That must have been a special moment. Talk me through the grand final, mate.
The 05 one was clearly very special because of the big drought, 72 years. The club, South Melbourne / Sydney, have had so long without having any joy. So that was extra special. It was also extra special for me, I suppose, selfishly, because I think it was my 294th game when we won that one. So I think I'd done my
That's a record too.
That was the record at the time, and then Shane Crawford got me when the Hawks won a few years later. But I was actually I was hoping that the great man would win because it's too long playing a game without getting some
those listening,
joy.
the record was the most games played prior to winning a flag. It was 294 games. Yeah, yep.
Yeah. So it is a long time, but I think the memories are very fond. We actually celebrated a little bit too long in the change rooms and then out in the ground after the game, and we got locked in at the MCG. We couldn't get out. So
Really?
yeah,
Love it.
we were stuck. They'd shut the big gate.
Yeah.
And so we were
lock
turning so we couldn't get to Punt Road. We were 45 minutes late, and we didn't really
Fantastic.
care because we had a couple of boxes of Crownies in the bus anyway.
Now, Danny, you've got a world record too, I believe.
Yes, it's not one you want though.
What is it?
And I don't have this verified by Guinness or anything, but I talk to whenever I meet someone in the medical profession, I ask, what's the longest vasectomy you've ever heard of? Because mine clocked in at 2 hours.
Jesus.
I thought you meant
That means
legs.
your cock.
It's massive. You got to order in special parts for this Ferrari. It was, so I had a great urologist. He was an Iranian man called Dr. Homey, and he was a really charming dude, and he was all fun and games, and we put the local anaesthetic in, and he's making small talk, and then he cut into my nutsack, which didn't hurt at all. It was all good. The anaesthetic worked, and his face dropped, and he genuinely said, "What the hell is that?"
Well, what's it?
Can you imagine a worse phrase to have when you have an open surgery on your bits than "what the hell is that"? The only worse phrase would be if he said, "Oh, by the way, I got a guest anaesthetist. It's Bill Cosby." That's the only thing that could have been worse.
You got some homie on your testicles, but so what was he worried about?
So apparently I've got some condition down there. The best way to describe it, you don't just have two tubes down there. You got a whole load of tubes, and they got to find the right one. Your vas deferens to cut to make sure the tadpoles can't get into the fluid. And literally, he cut into my bits, and apparently my tubes look like when you pull your earphones out of your bag after a while, and they're just all tangled.
Bit tangled?
Yeah. So he had to spend 2 hours trying to find the right one, and there was only 20 minutes worth of anaesthetic. It kept running out. It wasn't fun, and eventually, and of course, being down there, things kept swelling up, and it made it worse. But Dr. Homey, absolute champion, eventually got it, but not fun.
Like a knot in a fishing line.
Yes.
That's it. Have you had the snip, Paul?
No. But I'm really keen to go now that I've heard this. I'm going straight there.
Apparently there's a place, if you don't go to a proper urologist, there's a place down here in Melbourne called Dr. Snip, where you don't need an appointment. No. It's like you drive up. It's like a barber shop. You just sit there.
Drive through.
He'll do it through the
window. Do you want fries with that?
But I got told, apparently he's got a giant Where's Wally on the ceiling. So you look up, by the time you find Wally, you're done.
Hey,
Paul, I'll heat my butter knife up and do it myself.
That's it, mate. Like a good Collingwood boy. Hey, so Paul, I'll do my research. You won the Wrecker Award, 991. What's that? It's not home wrecker, but what is it?
No, that's at the Kangaroos.
Yeah, that's right. Too early? Is it too early?
Yeah, it's too soon. No, it's basically second to the football. Most tackles for the
Right.
year.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Gotcha.
I won that as my rookie year when I was 18, which was good. And we actually got when I won that, they gave me a 7-night accommodation at the Mirage that was just built at Port Douglas. And I didn't have anyone to take, so I ended up taking
sad.
Craig Kelly, which was a really poor decision.
Right. So, what, spooned or head to tail?
Oh, no. Separate beds. Separate beds.
Right.
Was he your manager? Is that why it happened? He said, I'm entitled to 15% of this?
That's right, yeah.
No, I was actually in his office at the time. I said, I've got no one to take. And he actually volunteered himself. So...
Well, no wonder you've had a vasectomy. Hey, I want to ask you, Danny, you've travelled all over, mate, doing your comedy act. You spent some time up in Edinburgh.
Yes.
I know you love Ange Postecoglou. I mentioned at the start. Now what's the story there? What's the history there? Why do you love him so much? He's done so well now.
Why do I love Ange?
Yeah.
My parents are migrants from Northern Ireland and Scotland, and so growing up, my dad's not into Aussie rules football. He goes for Carlton because the day he landed in Australia, my brother and my mum fell asleep from the jet lag. Mum was pregnant with me, and Dad just walked and found a pub, and no one, because he's from Glasgow, no one could understand him. He was trying to order a beer, and then this random bloke who could understand him translated and got him a beer and started chatting to him and said, what are you, what footy team do you go for? And Dad said Celtic, and the guy said, no, what real footy team? And Dad said, buy me another beer and I'll go for your team. And that guy went for Carlton, and Dad has he will never change.
Paul, did you play I was going to say, Paul, did you play other sports growing up?
Basketball. I was a really keen basketballer. I was lucky enough to play state basketball, but it was parallel to footy, and unfortunately, the length, height-wise, I was a little bit challenged vertically. So it was a pretty easy decision in the end to pick footy, but I probably almost liked basketball more than footy when I was about 14, 15, but decided to go with the AFL stuff.
And Danny, you describe yourself as how'd you become a premiership banner man? Like, how does that happen? Like,
I wrote the banners for the
Yeah.
Bulldogs for a few years, and that came about from being at a game just after my first child was born. I sort of did all the early shifts for a week and locked in that I could go to this game. And this will shock you, Paul. The Bulldogs were shocking in 2014 because they'd sacked you. We were no good.
Yep.
And I picked the game.
This is pre-vasectomy.
Pre-vasectomy, that's right. Yeah, it's the reason I had it. I picked a game that would be Dogs were second last. We were playing Brisbane, who were last at Dockland Stadium. Got there, and the Lions just turned it on. We were down by 10 goals halfway through the second quarter. So I start I'd taken a photo of the banner that the players run through before the game, and they put a little message on it. And the message was so bad. It was something like, we're here to do our best, so victory will be ours, which was just insipid. And I remember tweeting saying, this is rubbish. And all the cheer squad were clearly wanting to avoid watching the game as well. So they're having a go at me on social media. I'd like to see you do better. Anyway, things kind of snowballed, and I ran into a random one of the guys who worked at the Bulldogs just at one of the bars, who was drowning his sorrows as well. And I said, mate, I'll do the banners. At the time I was working for a TV show called Before the Game. I go, all right, for Before the Game, let me do it. And they gave me a go, and I remember the lady rang me and said, all right, we're bottom of the ladder now. We're playing Port Adelaide at Adelaide Oval. First time we've ever played there this week. What would you write? And I went, oh, yeah, we're probably going to get creamed. Oh, no, it's easy. You write Western Bulldogs undefeated at Adelaide Oval. And she went, oh, that's actually not bad. And then they gave me a go, yada, yada, yada. We win the grand final.
So, Paul, this is a leading question for you here. Are you going to be involved with the new Tasmanian outfit, the Devils? You'd
no,
think so,
no,
wouldn't you? No?
No. The ship sailed well and truly for me in that space. But I'll be a fan. I'll definitely be going to the first game for sure.
It's about time, isn't it?
Yeah, I'll listen. It's probably 15 years too late, really. The good news is that the local comp isn't at probably the level that it needs to be, but it's 5 years away. So the kids might actually start playing footy again, thinking that I'd love to play for my home state. So. I think
you think that ship sailed, do you? Like where kids stop playing footy down there because there's no career.
Yeah,
right.
Like basketball's huge down in Tassie now.
Okay.
That's probably the number one sport down there. So they need to get the kids back to going to Austick and actually playing. And the announcement gives them time because you've got some kids that are probably extremely talented that could probably go the other way. So
yeah. And Danny, if you were to write a banner for the new Tassie Devils, what would it be?
Yeah, something with two heads, would it?
Yeah.
Something with two heads.
I wouldn't do such a. I don't know. I need to know the nickname or whatever. Do you know, Paul? I've got a theory on the Tasmanian team. I reckon it'll become a bit of a hub for older players. Because, like, I reckon when you're 18, 19, you want to play somewhere like Sydney or the Gold Coast where the nightclub scene's good. But then as you get older, suddenly the thought of the mountains and a few distilleries will sound pretty good. And I reckon you'll get the 27-plus crowd and who will be smart footballers.
The retirement village. The retirement village.
It'll be like Geelong last year. They might be so, they'll win.
The Tassie seniors. That's what we call them. Yeah,
the superannuation.
The supers. I love it. Hey, I ask everyone who comes on the show, and I'll ask you first, Paul. A young boy or girl wants to go into professional football, AFL. What advice would you give them?
At a young age, bounce the ball with your opposite hand as much as you can.
That's good.
Nice.
And learn both sides of your body.
Wow. Great answer.
I think, I always could kick the ball quite well with my opposite side. Now, I think it was because I used to always bounce the ball with my left hand.
Are you right or left-handed, by the way?
Right.
Right-handed, okay. Yeah, interesting. And Danny, a young boy or girl wants to go into the world of comedy. What advice? Because you started at 16, which is... Well, first question before I ask you that advice, why 16? That's like, where's the confidence come from?
Oh, mate, I'm a young male, of course, filled with confidence.
That's a big thing to get in front of a microphone at 16.
Especially a Bulldog supporter.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing.
Yourself, wouldn't you?
I'd already endured so much pain. Sucking in front of a crowd was just nothing compared to it. I just was full of confidence and gave it a go. I was pretty rubbish footballer due to being severely asthmatic, but wanted to be the centre of attention. And I couldn't play an instrument, so I just gave it a crack. And because I used to love watching stand-ups on Hey Hey It's Saturday, the big gig. I thought it was. I still do think it's the greatest art form because it's just you and the crowd. It's almost gladiatorial. In there. The advice I would give, the advice to be a great comedian would be get up on stage and just do it. Suck. Because you will suck for the first 4 years of you doing it. What's probably better advice is get a TikTok following and then you'll sell out.
Well done.
But old man over here says just get up and do it.
And mate, has there been any famous people you've ever performed in front of that of note?
Yeah. I've done a few at corporate gigs. You occasionally get some people in there. I have done some gigs with prime ministers in the room. Ruddy heckled me, which wasn't a great heckle. It was just something like, I acknowledged that Ruddy was in the room and he told everyone don't listen to him, something like that. But the best gig I ever did, I was in Sydney hosting. There was a Q&A between Peter Hellier and Arnold Schwarzenegger about the new Terminator movie that was coming out, and I was just there to get the crowd ready and do a little bit of stand up to warm them up, and I did it, and what I didn't realise is Arnie was watching me. Because apparently Pete came out to meet Arnie, and Arnie was watching me, and the first thing he said to Peter Hellier was pointing at me, and he said, "He's very funny," and I'm like,
spit it out now.
Yeah, when Pete told me that, like, that's highlight of my career. Absolutely.
cool.
Arnie thinks I'm funny. Yes.
And Paul, was anyone you met through your days of playing footy, famous people that you bit of a sort of pinch me moment?
A couple, more so outside of footy, like at end of season trips and whatnot.
There we go.
We
Love
met
this.
a couple of amazing people. There was one time we were in LA and there was this roped off area, and a couple of us thought that we'd just put on our Australian accent and see if we could get in. And that didn't work. But the guy in the back said, "No, let him in," and it was Will Farrell. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah, so that was. We had
funny.
a few drinks with him. He's hilarious. He's one of the funny.
Was he
humans
funny in person
out there.
too?
He didn't. It's the same as what you see on TV, which was pretty cool. And I remember in Hawaii, we ran into Scottie Pippen.
Okay.
Not bad.
And
He's fucking bitter, isn't he?
O'Loughlin. Yeah, Mickey O'Loughlin's favourite player of all time, equal to Jordan. So Scotty was getting all these photos with females and whatnot in this bar, and Mickey went up to him and said, "Any chance to get a photo?" And he said, "No, mate, go."
Yeah.
He was.
MJ was right. MJ was right, wasn't he?
You know, Shane, Paul's just reminded me when I was backpacking in Las Vegas, me and a mate tried to sneak into a VIP area of a nightclub, and we did get in, but it was empty except for one woman, and we drank with her, and it turns out the reason she was there, she was Fergie from the Black Eyed Peas.
Oh, wow.
This is Mum.
Wow.
Mum.
Mum.
I remember we went 1995. We went to Hollywood to play cricket. This is before the IPL started. There's a guy called Mascarenas. He died in a car accident, but his idea was about India was going to take it off in the whole in the world of cricket. So we went there, and our team was Gilchrist, Simons. We had Love, we had Hodge, we had Hussey, Brett, and myself. We had a really good. All the guys ended up playing for Australia. But we were playing it in Hollywood because there was 250,000 registered cricketers in Hollywood at the time. And I remember going to a bar with Brennan Julian and Damien Martin, and this girl's singing. Damien Martin goes, "Fuck, she's all right." I said, "That's Dion Warwick, mate." He goes, "Who's that, man?" No idea, right? Yeah. But yeah, amazing times out there. So just quickly, Paul, I want to ask you before we finish, mate. Personally, what's your highlight, mate? If you had to pick a moment besides the grand final, which I know was amazing, but for you personally, because you've had many.
Probably two. Like one, 300th game was great. Like we played Tigers and the Swannies. We towed them up. We beat them by over 100. So that was a great moment. And probably another one was against Bulldogs. They used to tag me quite close, and there was one time where I took the mark right on quarter time siren, and Jose Romero gave me a little dirty, cheap elbow to the ribs. So I turned around and I tried to straighten his nose with a footy, and I said, "You can touch this as many times as you want, mate."
And then I want to ask you
as
both.
a Bulldogs fan in the 90s, Shane, I can tell you that story sounds 100% accurate.
I agree. I'll ask you both tips for the flag this year. I mentioned at the start too, Paul, but I think it's going to be. I still think Brisbane. I said at the start of the year, I think Brisbane's going to win. But thoughts, boys?
Well, I think it's going to be a Pies Melbourne grand final.
No Port Adelaide.
Not Port. I think the Melbourne hardened bodies might get over, and it might depend highly out of those three who plays who in the prelim. So it could come down to that. It'll be that close, but I think the Pies will win it for me.
Okay, and Danny?
Oh, as I said earlier, Collingwood are absolute lock to win it. But I'll tell you my fantasy is if the Bulldogs can't win it, I would love it to be Port Adelaide versus Collingwood, and then Port Adelaide win it, and what they do is they rip their jumpers off, and they're all wearing the prison bars underneath, and then the camera just cuts to Eddie Maguire openly weeping.
And then Koshy runs out.
What about body paint underneath? That'd be.
I like that. That's a good idea, Paul. Yeah.
Well, boys,
hey, Shane, before we finish, something I did before is I messaged the official Bulldogs historian, a guy called Andrew Gigatch, who's a ripping bloke. I said, have you got any stats on Paul Williams'
Love this. What
career?
Is it?
And I've got a couple of things. Do you know he played 306 games? That is 4.5 times the total combined other three P. Williams who have played AFL, VFL.
There you go.
Wow.
And you're the fourth Williams to coach in the AFL, but you have a better record than any other coach named Williams.
Nice.
And your highest possession count was 37, and you were wearing 37 that day.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. I was too. Yeah, I was too.
So what was your number throughout your career?
It was 37 at the start, and then 10 for the rest of my career. So I only wore 37 for the first year, and then 10 every other year after that.
Yeah, 37 at the Swans was kind of taken by another bloke.
By some fella.
Some guy.
Right, yeah. Well, boys, I really appreciate you coming on Lunch with Lee. And Paul, mate, great to see you again, albeit on Zoom or what's this, Riverside, wherever we're on. But Danny, thanks again, mate. I'll catch up with you when I get back from holidays. I'm off to for my 50th, Paul. I turned 50 in August, so I'm going away for a family holiday for a couple of weeks, mate.
Wow!
So,
happy birthday!
I'm off to Greece to catch up with my brothers.
Oh, lovely! I just turned 50 few months ago. So,
happy birthday, mate!
Yeah, thanks. So we had a party down at Middle Park, and what I've told, it was a good night.
And Danny's the youngest 21-year-old to have a vasectomy, so that's congratulations to him as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got
started early, didn't you?
For you. Bad news for you, Shane. Craig Kelly's coming on your family holiday.
All right, boys. Thanks very much.
Hey,
thank you.
See ya.
That's it for Lunch with Lee this week. A big thank you goes out to our guests Paul Williams and Danny McGinlay. And thanks also to our sponsors Manshake and Cell AED. Make sure you hit follow on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts from. And do us a favour, hit 5 stars. And if you're there and you feel passionate, please leave a review. And come find us out on Instagram at I'm at Lunch with Lee. Our official Lunch with Lee photography was done by Felicity Kelly. You can find her also on Instagram at Felicity Kelly Portraits. And once again, a big thanks to our producer, Dan McHugh. We'll be back soon with some more legendary guests on another cracking episode of Lunch with Lee. We'll see you then.
This podcast was made by Afternoon Sport Group.